I'm gonna get a little music for us and set a little. Can't stop when you're with me. I just can't stop. Oh, you're loving. I can't stop playing with me. I just can't stop. Oh, you're loving. I can't stop when you're with me. I just can't stop. Oh, you're loving. I can't stop playing with me. I just can't stop. Oh, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another segment of Cruz Inc. Radio 102.8 TV. I want to let you know from the beginning that we're not broadcasting live on the Cruz Inc. Radio Facebook page or my personal page tonight. So we ask that you tune in on the Richmond VA Things to Do group page, is where we're live, and also on our Cruz Inc. Radio TV YouTube page. We're going to be sharing this information after the broadcast to all of our Facebook pages, whether you're in New York or Texas or Memphis, Atlanta, any of our 12 cities that we broadcast to, plus all of our 5 Facebook pages in terms of group pages that we operate. So welcome. I'd like to thank our gold sponsor tonight, Ms. Pamela Jones, for helping keep us on the air. Ask us how you can become a gold sponsor as well. You can contact us at cruisinkradio@gmail.com. I have two of the most powerful women in the Commonwealth with me tonight. My distinguished guests are the Honorable Shannon Taylor, who is the Commonwealth's attorney for the County of Henrico, and also the Honorable Colette McEachin, who has been a wonderful guest and co-host with me over the last several weeks. Glad to have her back. She is the Commonwealth's attorney for the city of Richmond. And I want to say to you all, we have a lot of breaking news before we get into the laws of that's going to go in effect to tomorrow. But first of all, Shannon, you're the newbie here with us, so I'd like for you, if you would, for those that may not be familiar with you, to introduce yourself to our audience tonight.
Absolutely, Cruz. So, good evening, everyone. I am Shannon Taylor, and I am the Commonwealth's attorney for Henrico County. Cruz, I think the last time that I was able to be interviewed for your show was when we were at the Richmond City Jail, when Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax had his panel. And I had the honor of being on that panel, and we spoke afterwards. So it is great to be here. I look forward to sharing the knowledge that I have about Henrico and some of the great things that that we're doing, not only for the county, but I also hope for also the state.
Absolutely, and welcome. And also, Colette, I know that everybody have, they've seen you in various capacity, but for those that are going to be tuning in for the first time and also tune in later, please introduce yourself as well.
All right. Well, thank you for the promotion to co-host of your show. I like that. But in my real life, I am the Commonwealth's attorney for the city of Richmond. I have been with the Richmond Commonwealth Attorney's Office for over 20 years, and I was elected to the position of Commonwealth's attorney in November of 2019. So I am officially 6 months into my term, and it has been an exciting 6 months. How about that? It's been an exciting 6 months.
Absolutely. And Shannon, how long have you been in your position as a Commonwealth's attorney?
So January 1 of 2012 was the beginning of my first term. So I'm now in my third term out in Henrico.
Third term. Oh,
Yes.
so you've been baptized with fire too, huh?
Yes.
Well, certainly thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us tonight. And we're going to have a what we call a fireside chat tonight about a number. There's over 1,200 new laws that are coming into effect tomorrow. We won't talk about all 1,200, but we're going to be highlighting some of the ones that we know that people are going to be interested in. But before we go there, there's been some breaking news tonight. I'm sure you all are well aware that Governor Ralph Northam has extended the state of emergencies for another 30 days. And I'd like to start with you, Colette. What does that mean for the city of Richmond with this extension? And then I'm going to come to you, Shannon, with that same question as well.
Mhm. So, the fact that the current state of affairs is continuing is, I think, a good thing, especially given what's happened in Richmond over the past month, and given the spike of COVID cases that we are seeing, if not in the immediate Richmond Tri-Cities area, then certainly across the country. And so I support what the governor did. And I am hoping that this month that gives us time to feel more comfortable with the transition that we will hopefully make to opening Richmond and the Commonwealth of Virginia up completely.
Now, does that also keep officers on alert? I don't know what the different statuses are in terms of green or gold or red or orange, but does that also keep the resources available in case we have more protesters and other activities?
Yes, it does. It does. It allows everyone access to resources to protect public health and safety. And that's what all of us want without repressing people's First Amendment rights to peacefully assemble.
We're going to get back to that peacefully assemble in just a moment, just some more discussion on that. What about for your jurisdiction in terms of the governor's extension, Shannon?
Oh, I mean, I agree with Colette. I mean, his ability to have the emergency powers just allows the governor to make certain decisions without having to go through some of the normal protocols, because there are some decisions that have to be made, quickly and readily. And I think Governor Northam has demonstrated that he makes these decisions very purposefully and appropriately, and to the extent that he has that ability to help Henrico County in any capacity. I know that the relationship has been good. The communication has been really good with the Department of Health and our local health director, who happens to be the same health director for the city of Richmond. So we certainly do appreciate all the support that the governor is willing to give all the localities here in the Commonwealth.
Also, there's going to be a number of changes. The chief of police for Henrico,
Yes.
understand, is his last. Is it tomorrow that it's last day?
September 1st is,
Okay.
my understanding is Chief Cardinal's last day.
And wow, that's going to, he's been with the department over, I believe, 30 something years.
Yes,
So
yes,
that's
yes.
phenomenal. We want to say congratulations to him and to his family and thank him for the services that he's provided for over these 30 plus years.
I'm sure I will be sure to pass along that supportive message.
Okay. All right. Some other breaking news that I'm sure you ladies are aware of is that, and the judge denies the ACLU request to ban police from using tear gas. All right, Shannon, I'm gonna throw this one back in your lap for a minute. How does that affect what you all are doing in terms of public safety and the department, the police department, and that jurisdiction?
So I think, yeah, I thought you were going to throw it to me. Well, I'll tell you. I mean, Cruz, I think this is one of the issues that is at the heart of this argument, that is being, is part of the national dialogue, which is, do we need to take the time to kind of review what it means to have public safety in your locality. And what does it mean when we use the terms of demilitarization? And I don't use the term defunding, but I do understand when we are talking about how we want public safety officials to be utilized in your locality. And I think it's something where when we talk about the citizen review board, I mean, this is something that is going to be unique to each jurisdiction, because each jurisdiction has potentially different needs. And so when we talk about some of the implements that are utilized by law enforcement, and I'm going to talk broader picture because we've seen lots of pictures in a lot of different jurisdictions, and we've seen people who've been struck with rubber bullets, and you've seen it embedded in their skin. And we just have to figure out two things: the way that people are conducting themselves, like Colette has alluded to already, that we're going to talk about the peaceable protests, and when that line gets crossed, and what exactly is the appropriate response for law enforcement. And that is, again, like I said, it is the national dialogue. It is definitely going to be a statewide dialogue, because we've heard it on the agenda, whether it be of the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus, whether it's our Democratic Senate caucus, or our House caucus members. We are hearing it from all levels that this is something that is important to the legislative representatives of this Commonwealth, and will ultimately be part of the dialogue that prosecutors are engaging in.
And Colette?
Yes.
So you're just gonna make me ask that question all over again. All right. How does it impact Richmond in terms of the judge's decision today?
So she did not enjoin she did not enjoin the police department from using tear gas or other agents to disperse a crowd. So the case is still continuing. The ACLU wanted an injunction. The ACLU wanted her to order the Richmond Police Department not to use that method of crowd dispersion. And in her order, which I did not read in its entirety, I just read a summary, she seemed to indicate that she did not feel that it was the court's position to mandate to the police how they should use the resources that they have to protect public health and safety. And so because she did not feel that the court had the knowledge to tell the police what to do, she decided that the injunction was not appropriate. But the case will go on. And when I know people have been concerned and outraged about the use of tear gas at some of the protests that have occurred. And obviously, tear gas has not been used at every protest. And I know that there is a spectrum, and I think Shannon can also talk to this, having been a prosecutor in Richmond prior to becoming the Commonwealth's attorney in Henrico, that there is a spectrum and a range of resources and things that the police do in order to protect people. And I can hear people behind me that I don't see saying, well, they didn't protect us. They shot tear gas at us, or they did other things to us. I am not in charge of the Richmond Police Department. I was not there when any of those things happened. I am investigating those instances, but I would like people to consider that if there is a range of things that the police can do, and that we would all agree that it is better for the police to not physically engage with anyone, to not be in hand-to-hand combat with anyone, then the use of a tear gas or OC spray may, in the police spectrum of use of force, be an intermediate way of dispersing a crowd without getting into hand physical assault, which would just be horrific. So I can't say that I know what the police were thinking, because I am not a police officer and I am not in charge of the police. But I know that the use of tear gas is a non-lethal method of crowd control, and I think that that is why it has been used. Was it always used appropriately? I will respond to that at another time.
Right.
Now, both of you all are considered the chief law enforcement officers in your locality, and you all catch a lot of flack, when things go south. But you don't get the praise for helping to bring justice to those who have been victims of crime, and along that line. So, how is there a balance here, ladies, in terms of trying to, again, and we're going to go back to that peacefully protest thing, but how do you balance what is going on right now and try to continue to move your respective uh, offices forward and keep the morale up that's going on, because you guys come under fire quite a bit.
Right.
I guess I'll take this first to say that I want people to be aware that last week in the city of Richmond, 5 or 6 people were killed in 1 week. So far this year, 25 people have been murdered in Richmond. And I can't even tell you how many shootings have happened that did not result in a death, but resulted in either a malicious wounding or an aggravated malicious wounding, how many felony sexual assaults occurred. And so while everyone is, of course, focused on the murder, and I think we all agree that it was murder, the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, my office also has to be concerned with the 25 people who have been murdered so far in the city of Richmond. And we are working on those cases along with all of the other serious, violent cases that occur in the city of Richmond literally every day. And so I want to recognize my attorneys who are working double duty and not being paid overtime, but working double duty to both respond and investigate each alleged complaint of police brutality or misconduct, and deal with the over 200 people who were initially arrested for being in violation of the curfew that the governor imposed at the mayor's request. All of those things are happening simultaneously. And I just wanted to recognize the hard work that the Commonwealth Attorney's Office is doing to both investigate and prosecute the crimes that are still continuing while we are dealing with the fallout from the protests.
Absolutely. Shannon?
Yeah, I think Colette has really hit on an important aspect that I've been saying publicly and want to reiterate here again, which is, when we're talking about homicides, and we're talking about rapes, and we're talking about robberies, those are the times when we want law enforcement to be involved, and we want them to take on that public safety role that we ask them to do, which is why, we need them. We need public safety officials for any, community to be safe. And, and Cruz, I think you're right. I mean, prosecutors are kind of the next group that are going to be looked at, because once you have talked about how law enforcement is getting away with certain things, then the next comment is, and it's those, daggone, Commonwealth attorneys, prosecutors that are letting them get away with it. And we have to remind the public that, we are not the lawyers for the police department. Each locality has a city or a county attorney, and they are the lawyers for law enforcement. But when we are telling the public that it is our job to do justice, and that meaning that we are responsible for when there are victims of crimes, to make sure that we have evidence to hold the appropriate person accountable for the actions against a victim, as well as that we also have to make sure that that person who is being brought before the court to be held accountable, that their constitutional protections are still in place. And and to that end, we have to look at ourselves to make sure that we are following, our obligations. And then it's our responsibility to ensure that law enforcement is respecting those constitutional protections. And so that is what I would say is a very delicate, I'm going to call it a delicate balancing act, but yet it's also something that is, it is what it is, and it is our job, and we have to take that responsibility and those duties incredibly seriously, because ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody has to have trust in the criminal justice system. The victim has to trust that that they were protected, and their voice was heard. We have to make sure that whoever is brought before the court, and that who are held accountable, appropriately accountable for their actions, believe that that the system safeguarded those constitutional protections. And so it is something that I know that Colette and I are both, we're both very dedicated to the idea of justice for our communities. And I can tell you that, at least as for Henrico County, I'm working hard with the resources that we have, and with what's going on in our community, or I should say my community, to make sure that there is that trust with the citizens. And one of the things that I shared with you, Cruz, before we got on air, was that I was just highlighted, so to speak, because of this new position that I have in my office that we just started advertising for on Monday. And that is a new attorney position that is going to be reviewing body-worn camera footage for those times where if a citizen feels like they were not treated professionally, or think their constitutional rights were violated. And some of them have lawyers to help them with those situations. But the idea that we can provide another mechanism for the community to express themselves, particularly when we talk about the African American community who may feel like their voices have not been heard. We want to be able to tell them, we have another place for you to voice your concerns. And that, I think, goes along with that delicate balancing act that Colette has recognized, that I have recognized, and just wanting to make sure that the attorneys in our office are given that opportunity to do their jobs the best way possible.
Well, first of all, congratulations on that, and I'm sure that's going to help ease, hopefully, some tension throughout not only Henrico, but just the Commonwealth as a whole. And both of you all, again, touched on something that I think that's important, and we're going to get to the new laws, but I promise everybody wanted to tune in and find out what y'all going to do about the marijuana smokers. So we're, we're going to talk about that, because there's one particular question that continues to resonate, and that's, I'm sure you're going to get time and time again starting tomorrow, and I don't want to give it away right now, but let's talk about trust for a minute. Establishing that trust level again between the police department and particularly the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, because I've heard the comment so many times that when it comes to actually prosecuting police, that the Commonwealth's attorneys are basically hands are tied to a certain degree because of the working relationships that have to continue with the police department and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. What do you all say to the critics that say that, and Colette, you went through this fire just not too recently when somebody was saying that there should be special prosecutors brought in when police are on trial. What do you all say to that? And either one of you can jump right in on that one. This is a conversation, so let me get the tea and pass out the tea and crumpets here.
I mean, I will tell you that during my tenure, we have prosecuted a law enforcement officer, and you're right. I mean, we have a responsibility that when we have individuals who are coming to our courts, we are supposed to assess whether or not we feel like we have what's called a conflict of interest. Do we have a situation where we have such a relationship with that specific individual that there might be what we call the appearance of impropriety. And to a certain extent, for someone like me who has not been in Henrico County, or at that time had not been there for like 20 plus years, and who does not know every police officer on the force, it lent itself to a question of, did I feel like that we had a conflict? Because on the other side of that, and this is a conversation I've had with lots of my colleagues, which is this notion that as the elected prosecutor, there is almost an ownership of the fact that when there is a situation like that, that the people who voted you into office have an expectation that you're going to do your job. And if you take my earlier statement, which is we are not their attorneys, yes, we do have to work, we do work together, and we have to work together in order to have evidence presented. But when you come down to it, and if we are alleging that an officer, regardless if they're wearing the uniform or not wearing the uniform, if they break the law, they're supposed to be held accountable like anybody else. Just like if I were to do something, just because I'm a lawyer, doesn't mean that I get any special treatment. And so we have to treat those situations with that same analysis of, do we have a conflict? Do we not have a conflict? And then weighing the other aspect of it of, do we think, is there an appearance of impropriety, or do we feel like the voters have this expectation, and that is my obligation to the members of the community who voted me into office? And there have been other cases, other times when we've reviewed matters and we've asked for an outside opinion. And I just did that recently. I did that last year and had two other colleagues around the state review a matter to see if they came to the same legal conclusion I did, which they did. So it has nuances, but it's not supposed to be so different.
Yeah, I would just, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Got a little feedback, but we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know where that's coming from. So I would echo what Shannon said, that the voters voted each of us into office to make hard decisions, and to be fair, nobody wants a bad cop. They don't do anything good for our cases. They don't help our community involvement. They are a stain on the badge, and we don't want cases that are presented by officers who are using excessive force or whose recitation of the facts can't be trusted. So, to Shannon's point, both of our jurisdictions, Richmond and Henrico, have big enough Commonwealth attorney's offices that when an officer needs to be prosecuted, a lot of times that officer is not known to a number of attorneys. And so there is no relationship. And it's easy to assign an attorney from our office who has never met or spoken with or had a case with that officer to do the prosecution. I will say following up on what Shannon alluded to earlier, which is her creation of a deputy position to review police misconduct. In Richmond, we've had that for a while. And so my chief deputy is the person who is responsible for reviewing all police involved shootings. And then another seasoned prosecutor in our office, who is a former assistant attorney general, reviews other police misconduct allegations. And like Shannon said, we have also prosecuted officers when the evidence led that way.
So there are checks and balances, perhaps that the public isn't aware of, and I'm glad we're having this conversation because now it adds more integrity, and I think people, and we talked about earlier today, Colette, and I don't want to let our project out of the bag, but before you open your mouth, know the facts. I think that's where we are right now in this society. We have a lot of people that are, again, stating and spewing a lot of things, but don't necessarily take the time to do the research to find out if there's something in place, what are the checks and balances, rather than assuming everything comes to your desk, Colette, or everything comes to your desk, Shannon, that there are some buffers and some people in between that. Is that a correct statement?
Can I take this one and then?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
So it's so coincidental that you should mention that, because I had a conversation this afternoon with someone who was under a misapprehension, and so I will just kind of I will just lay out the way it works in Richmond, which is that if you are arrested on a Friday and you are not released on a summons by the police officer, but you are actually taken to the Richmond Justice Center to be placed under arrest on a warrant, you are going to be taken that afternoon, that night, immediately to a magistrate. And the magistrate's office is not associated with the police department or with the jail or with my office or with the mayor's office. The magistrate's office is run by the Office of the Executive Secretary of the Virginia Supreme Court. They are their own entity. And that magistrate will make a decision on the spot about whether or not you receive bond. And that decision will be based on the complaint that the police officer gives and the facts of what led him or her to arrest you. But you are also welcome to say whatever you would like to say to the magistrate. And I will tell people, and I hope they take this to heart, that your demeanor and behavior in front of the magistrate will inform the magistrate's decision about whether or not they think that you are either a danger to yourself or to society and should not be released, or if they think that you will not obey the law and keep the peace and be a good behavior and return to court when they tell you your next court date is. And so those are the two things that guide any bond decision, basically. Are you dangerous? Are you going to come to court? And if the facts that the magistrate hears on Friday night suggest to him or her that you are dangerous or that you will not come to court, they will either order you held with a secure bond that somebody then needs to pay, or hold you without bond until Monday morning when court next meets. On Monday, when you're brought before the judge, or in this COVID world, when you appear on video in the courtroom, the judge will arraign you. She will tell you what you are being charged with, and she will ask you whether or not you want to have a court-appointed attorney or retain your own attorney. But then she will also look at your bond situation. And by that time, that is the first time that a Commonwealth attorney knows that you have been arrested, knows anything about your case. We had nothing to do with your arrest. We had nothing to do with the bond that the magistrate imposed. And so that is when my office first becomes involved. And so one of the things that people don't realize, and what led to this conversation earlier this afternoon, was people assume, well, so-and-so was arrested and you're holding them without bond. I had no idea the person was arrested. My office had no idea. We don't know until at least the next day if it's a business day. And if it's a weekend or if it's a long holiday weekend, we won't know until the time that the person is in court. So that's one piece of education that I just want to give your listeners.
And that was some good piece of education because, I've been in the work for a Commonwealth attorney as a special assistant, and that was, I guess, I was asleep on that part of the class because I missed that in terms of the line of demarcation with the magistrate. So, again, that's some very good information. I certainly appreciate that, and want to also tell our viewers if you have a question for our Commonwealth attorneys, please put your questions in the comments section. And as always, be respectful because this is a discussion here and we're not here to point fingers or to malign anybody's character. So if you guys know me, I don't pull no punches. You put a question out there that, again, is not conducive of the conversation. That question will not be answered. And also, you can give us a call at 804-601-0281. We're opening up the phone lines, and that same rule applies. You say something on the phone that's not conducive to this conversation, you will hear what do I have? I think I have Xfinity. You will hear a tone from Xfinity on that one. So, all right. Now, Shannon, before we move on, did you have any comments along that line of thought as well? Because I know people they want to get into this marijuana thing, so we're gonna get there.
I know. Well, I'll tell you just briefly, Cruz. I mean, I think what is really interesting is when we look at how some other states handle their process, whether it be New York or New Jersey or I think even Florida. I mean, there's a much more intense participation by prosecutors early on in the system. We talk about night court, right, up in New York. And that's because when people are charged, and for anybody of the New Yorkers out there, please forgive me if I state this the wrong way, but the idea being that when you have a charge placed on you, your district attorney's office, your DAs up in New York have a time period, and I think it's like 24 hours. And they have to make a decision about whether or not someone's going to get diverted or not diverted, and if they go through the system. And so there's so much more interaction where prosecutors can kind of look at a case and say, you know what, this isn't really something that should be coming to court. And people are able to, not be presented to the court system and not have to talk about bail. But boy, that is that is 180 degrees from how we have the criminal justice system in the Commonwealth, where I'm going to say 80% of the cases come in because patrol officers, detectives have made arrests on warrants that aren't always vetted through the Commonwealth Attorney's Office in the very beginning. So we're like doing the triage after the fact when people are coming up for arraignment and looking at reports, that morning and going, oh, well, this is a great case, or this is maybe a weak case and it needs X, Y, Z. So, changing the whole system to allow there to be a better opportunity to view the good cases, quote unquote, from the bad cases would be a significant overhaul for the Commonwealth. But there's a lot of change. You just said 12,000 bills that are coming out, new laws for July 1st. So change can happen in the Commonwealth, and we'll see where we go.
Yeah, we definitely will see for that. All right, everybody. Again, I know you guys have been just chopping at the bits to talk about as of July 1, people found in possession of, get this now, under 1 ounce.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want you all to underline this and pay close attention. If you sleep back there in class today, this is law 101 about to happen here. Under 1 ounce of marijuana will face a $25 civil fine. There will be no longer jail time or a criminal conviction.
Mm-hmm.
Criminal records of simple possession will be sealed, and employers and schools will be banned from asking about prior, get this now, simple possession convictions.
Correct.
Here we go. Because somebody out there already is going to say, Well, I only had an ounce and a half, and so tomorrow, 4th of July, somebody gonna say, well, it was only a little over an ounce.
Right.
Is this law, ladies, is it going to be a stickler to that, first of all, that 1 ounce? Is there any leadway, or is that still going to be a case by case scenario?
Shannon, you want to go first? Or?
I mean, it's still a case by case scenario. I mean, I get it. And I can tell you, my office, because it is no longer a crime, we are not going to be involved in it. Individuals should be, and it's going to be a summons. So when somebody has contact with law enforcement, there's going to be a new summons that has been created by the Supreme Court, which is going to say, Mr. John Doe, come to Henrico Court on, August 17th. And they'll come to court on August 17th, and the judge will say, Mr. Doe, it's a $25 fine if you want to accept that. And Mr. Doe will make their decision. And the most important part of this is when you talked about, Cruz, those past convictions, because that is so critical. I mean, I know there's also a big movement for the expungement of those convictions. And I was part of a bill proposal that, all that expungement stuff got set to the side for the Crime Commission to review. Although I think with this special session that Virginia is going to have in August and September, we just may go ahead and see some of that expungement stuff actually being voted on. But it's true, like no more simple possession. You will not know anything about anybody's prior convictions for simple possession marijuana.
I would just follow up with that to let people know that all is not unicorns and daisies. In that, regarding your scenario, what if it's just a little over an ounce? The 1 ounce marker is the line, but because Commonwealth attorneys have the amount of discretion we have based on the facts, as Shannon said, it may be a situation where we agree to amend it down or reduce it to less than 1 ounce, which then converts it to a civil case, which we then step out of and leave to the court to decide. I also want to make the point that if you have been convicted of marijuana in the past and you've been convicted, Virginia law that Shannon just alluded to does not allow for the expungement of convictions. So the General Assembly has said that starting July 1st, if you are, I don't even know if we can actually use the term convicted of a civil marijuana penalty, if you are penalized and found guilty of violating the statute and having and getting the civil fine, you can have that expunged. But if you were found guilty last year of simple marijuana possession and you were convicted of simple marijuana possession, you cannot have that charge expunged.
I just probably heard somewhere across the whole Commonwealth, somebody woke up coughing and said, "Say what?" Because they were looking for July the 1st for every arrest and every conviction dealing with marijuana to be expunged, and so that's not happening, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the language is saying it's all sealed, so which means no one is supposed to know about it. But when we talk about formal expungements, we're talking about having police records actually taken out of the police database. We're talking about having the files destroyed in the clerk's office and destroyed in the Commonwealth Attorney's office. And I'm not going to speak for the General Assembly, but I think they were hoping that this idea of sealing everything would kind of give it the same weight as saying, oh, we've removed it from your record, like an expungement. But they made it very clear that no one is supposed to know about any prior simple possession marijuana convictions, and made it very clear that moving forward on July 1st, that this is a finable offense. You pay no court costs, and it's not going to be on your record. I mean, that to me was a very clear message from the General Assembly.
And Cruz, I'm willing to go out on a limb publicly on your show, and I am going to say that marijuana will be completely legal in Virginia within 5 years.
Oh, I totally agree with. I believe that. I think less than 5 years.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my next. Yeah, I wanted to discuss, because it seems like it's paradoxical right now that we're basically doing part A, but we still haven't made it legal, in terms of having any type of possession. So I'm Joe Stupid tonight. Y'all gonna have to help me with that one in terms of if you have under an ounce of an illegal substance, you're only going to be fined and not penalized with jail time, but it's still illegal according to the way the law is written right now. Is that correct?
It is not criminal, but it is illegal, and under federal law, marijuana is considered at the same level as a Schedule 1 or 2 controlled substance.
Oop, it just got quiet in the Commonwealth. You can laugh tonight, Colette. It's okay. We're gonna have a good time with this marijuana thing, because I'm telling you, somebody was puffing just a few minutes ago, and they got caught up on a cough when they heard that one.
It's always better to know.
Absolutely. So, again, what are some of the other laws that will have any type of, I would say, legal impact that will come through your offices out of these 1,200 laws that you all have been able to kind of break down and dissect? Anything else that people need to be aware of? Say, oh, well, wait a minute, I have one. How about the Colette? This is the one that I was surprised. Holding the phone while driving is not going to come into effect until January of 2020. I thought it was already in effect at this time.
So this is the either the benefit or the cost of living in the city of Richmond, depending on how you want to look at it. So there are two things. The Richmond City Council has already passed an ordinance which says that if you are driving a car within the Richmond city limits, you cannot have a handheld device while you are driving. It's only while the vehicle is in motion. So, theoretically, you could be stopped at a stoplight and look over at your phone, but you can't be driving and operating and having a moving vehicle and have a phone in your hand while you're texting somebody or looking at pictures or something. And that ordinance is a primary offense. So a lot of times, like if you remember Cruz with the seatbelt laws, a lot of times people want to know, well, can an officer stop me just because I don't have a seatbelt on, even though I'm not doing anything else illegal? Well, with this handheld or hands-free ordinance that City Council passed, yes, that is a primary offense. And so you can be stopped if an officer sees you operating a motor vehicle while you have a handheld device. So that's what's happening in the city of Richmond now, and that is in effect now. But to your point, the General Assembly passed that law statewide, but wanted to give people time to kind of get their minds around it. And so the statewide law does not go into effect until January 2021.
What about in your locality? Any sticker shocks, Shannon, in your area?
No, I haven't heard that being proposed yet to the Board of Supervisors about whether or not they'll come up with a similar ordinance in Henrico County. But I do appreciate it because, there was the way the law was currently written wasn't giving much guidance to law enforcement as to whether or not someone was actually texting or were they just moving, to look at the weather. And one was a prohibited action, but the other one really wasn't. And so, or if you were looking for a number or whatever. So this, I think, gives a clear definition as to what's happening, and really just, and it's about change behavior. And like my change behavior is you put that phone, you got to put it in your purse so you don't feel like you're getting distracted. So we're going to hopefully change behavior here over the next 6 months as we get ready for January 1st.
I have a question that just come in from Colette Coco Davis, and we're going to put this up, and then we're almost to the hour here, so we're going to be wrapping it up. But I'm going again, since I have you up on the screen, I'll let you shoot this one. Then I'll turn that question also over to Colette. It says, and how will officers prove that you were using your phone while driving? So here we're going to get into the splitting hairs, just like the ounce or half an ounce and a little over an ounce scenario.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the police officers are going to get training from their general counsel, at least in Richmond, about how to deal with that situation. But I think it's going to come down to the officer just reciting the facts to the judge. Judge, I was following this car for this length of time, and I observed through different stoplights and stop signs, the person, manipulating the phone. And at some point I pulled up and I was beside them, and I was able to see that their hands were moving and that at some point their head was tilted to the right. And it was clear in my judgment as a police officer that they were actually operating the phone, not just holding it, and they were doing it while the motor vehicle was in motion. And then it will be up to the judge to hear the other side from the person charged and make a decision.
Shannon?
Well, I'm hoping that for those law enforcement agencies that have body-worn cameras, that we will get our officers to start engaging and using those, because I can tell you that while I do not have a badge, I have certainly pulled up again, alongside plenty of people who were texting and did not even know that anybody else was around them. So it shouldn't be that hard to catch somebody on the body-worn camera as they are texting and driving.
All right, here's another zinger right here by Coco. She wants to know what happens if a driver is using their GPS system, of course. And again, we have a lot of people out here, Uber drivers,
Right,
and Lyft drivers, and just delivery drivers that, again, checking information and not necessarily using it for, say, recreational purposes. Here we go. Do we split hairs again?
I would say, Miss Davis, if someone is using it for GPS and you get pulled over, leave the screen up, because I understand that too. And I don't have one of those little handy gadgets where I can snap my phone in. So I probably need to get one because now I'm telling on myself, but I have my phone in my cup holder.
I hear the sirens.
I keep my phone in my cup holder. And so it's standing upright so I can see it. But I understand that concern. But the good news is your GPS, if you happen to get pulled over, just keep that screen open so that you can show the officer that's what you're utilizing it for. That would be my best guidance for the evening.
Oh, Colette, I had a curveball for you on this one. Here we go. Again, because we know that cell phones have basically escalated a lot of situations here. And I totally respect what Shannon just said in terms of leaving the screen up. But you can be approached by an officer and it's dark and you fumbling around with your phone back there.
Right.
That could be probably a not so good situation.
Yeah.
Please address that one. What do you say to people, and again, in balance of, I need to make sure the officer knows about that I'm not breaking the law here?
Mm-hmm. I can't possibly think of every scenario where you would come in contact and be stopped because an officer saw you manipulating your phone while you were driving. So I'm not going to try to come up with an argument or defense for each one of those scenarios. But what I would say is, whatever happens on the street, take it in stride. That is not the place to fight that battle. And if you get a ticket, you go to court and you argue your case. And whether you have, after everything's over, taken a screenshot of your phone, like Shannon suggested, or done something else, it's not the time to engage in a legal argument with the officer then, because he or she believes what they believe. You probably are not going to talk yourself out of a ticket. They may not give you a ticket because the law is new, and they may give you a break, and that happens all the time. But that's the reason that the court system is so important, so that you can present your argument to a neutral party, a judge who can decide the issue. Don't even bother about arguing your position on the street, because that's not where the fight is.
I'm gonna have to have both of you all back just on that one point right there about taking the fight and again to the court system, and this is what I tell my sons is live to tell your story, live to tell your side. And that's the conversation that we're in this age where we have to anybody, whether it's your son, daughter, or grandmother, whoever, you want to live to tell your side. And I want to give you all an opportunity as we get ready to close out. I'll start with you, Shannon, for any last words or thoughts or comments that you want to make, and then Colette, you as well. Shannon?
Well, just want to say, Cruz, thank you so much for inviting me to be here this evening, and please extend another invitation. I would love to be on the show with my good friend, Colette, and just to know that, the conversation's not over. And more importantly, I really feel like we have gotten to what I've been calling the tipping point moment, of 30 days plus when Mr. Floyd was killed. And I do want people to know that I think change is necessary. It's happening. And I think we all want what will ultimately be, what we hope is going to be a better place on the other side of all this. And so I know that you have the commitment of elected officials like myself, like Colette, like others here in the Commonwealth, that are committed to making sure that that we have the right place when this is all said and done.
Awesome. Colette?
Yeah, what I would say is nothing happens that lasts until you vote. And November is coming up. And so we have all lived long enough, you, Cruz, and me and Shannon, we have all lived long enough to see lots of marches and lots of protests and lots of church services and lots of vigils and lots of a whole bunch of stuff. But until laws are changed, actions don't change. And so the way laws get changed is that you impact who is making those laws. And the way you do that is to vote. So I don't want to hear from people who tell me that they want this, that, and another thing done, but they didn't register to vote because, well, my vote doesn't make a difference, or it's not going to matter in the long run, or whatever the excuse is. If you're not willing to put skin in the game in that manner, that our ancestors died to have that right, were fire hosed to have that right, were poll taxed to have that right. If you're not willing to put that skin in the game, don't talk to me.
Wow, I like that. No, seriously. Colette, I got one correction though. This beard is a painted on beard, so I'm really not that old.
Oh, stop. Don't even go there. Don't even go there.
So you put me all in the marches and everything,
It's because you're such a student of history. Not that you participated, but just because you're such a student of history.
Well, I can tell you this. I will not lie. I've seen some marches, and I was back in Memphis in 1968, so I'm very
Mm,
familiar with quite a few things. And I want to say to both of you all are extremely busy, and you have so much going on throughout the day. And to take time out of your schedule away from your family to be here tonight with me on this broadcast, I truly appreciate that, and I don't take this for granted. And thank you for gracing us with your presence.
absolutely.
Well, we'll be back, and Shannon, there will be an extension. And as always, I won't. She's not. She's Batwoman now, so Batwoman will be back along with Batman.
That's awesome.
You guys have a great evening. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being here.
Thank you, Cruz.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. Thank you again for being with Cruz Inc. Radio 102.8, your internet radio station for smooth jazz, R&B, gospel, and more. If you want to know what's going on Cruz Inc. Radio, go to cruisincradio.com right now. And if you missed the beginning of this broadcast, it will be on our YouTube channel right after we end this broadcast. So please go out there to our YouTube channel. We will also be sharing it on 12 of our pages. So no matter if you're down in Texas or you're up in New York, you will be able to get this information and see these wonderful, powerful women at work. Again, thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. Remember, don't over celebrate out there come 4th of July, and keep it up under an ounce. Good night.
Good night.